My girlfriend took a break from me and spent the summer with another guy so she could be sure I was the one. Part 1. My girlfriend Zoe left me to be with another guy 2 years ago. She did this because she needed to be sure I was the one. I was absolutely devastated. This was a premeditated decision. In the spring of that year, we were both in college and had been together 6 years at that point. I was unaware, but she had been conversing with a guy in class. Feelings grew. She swore she never cheated or did anything physical or even met him outside of class, but they did have a lot of text conversations for the months leading up to her revelation. Just as the semester ended, she sat me down and told me she was going to go stay with him for the summer. He had just finished school and was moving to a new city and had an apartment lined up. She was going to stay with him for June and July, then return for our senior year. She offered me her phone and said I could read everything that was there. She wanted me to know she had not cheated. I was a mess. I love her immensely and did then as well. I was begging her to not do this. She tried to be as comforting and consoling as possible, but at the same time was steadfast she was going to do this. Her main reasoning being we had only ever been with each other and she needed to know she wasn't missing out. I couldn't even begin to guess how many times she said she loved me still saw a potential future, and this was just to be sure. She even encouraged me to date. She left 5 days after this conversation. I tried so hard to get her to stay, but she went. I worked and did nothing else those entire 2 months. I didn't socialize, I barely ate, I barely slept. I went from 185 pounds to 165 pounds. She asked me to not contact her. I respected that. I was living in our apartment, everything was a reminder, a trigger. It was the worst, most painful time of my life. I knew she would return, even if not for me. We still had a year to go in college. And she did return. 1 week sooner than expected. It was a Sunday and she just showed up at the apartment. She broke down in tears upon seeing me. I was so much thinner, eyes sunken, mildly unkempt. The apartment wasn't disgusting, but it wasn't nice either. She told me she knew just from looking at me that she had destroyed me. We both cried for a long time. She was so apologetic. She said she knows now, she wants me and only me. I was more than willing to take her back. We had a tense honeymoon phase upon her return, where we were both tiptoeing around each other. Spending lots of time together, but also having this elephant in the room. That lasted a month or so when I started having the anxiety attacks. This is when we finally started. Over the next 9 months or so I became more and more depressed. I was verbally abusive at times. Zoe took it, everything I said. She always tried to reassure me, always took responsibility. I asked all the time what I had lacked. What could I do better? Why wasn't I good enough? What more did she need? She always said I was great the way I was. That she made the choice she did, not because any fault of my own, but out of her own immaturity. We discussed what her life those 7 weeks was like. Obviously it was a full sexual relationship. They went on dates, they slept in the same bed, showered together, that was our thing, at least to me it was, talked about where this was going. I didn't think the wondering, the mind movies, would be easier to deal with than the truth, but I have a lot of days where I wish it was still just my imagination. The hardest part to cope with is she told me she returned early for me, but at the same time, after his initial 6 weeks he was offered the same position at another branch. That branch was about 5 hours away, initially he was only about 40 minutes away from our campus. They talked and decided that while this had been fun, he wasn't sure it was worth continuing long distance. She told me she had mixed feelings, which was to her an indicator to return to me and try and redeem herself. I on the other hand now endlessly wonder if she would have come back at all if not for him moving. That brings us to a year ago. I was still easily triggered. I still had my moments of name calling and verbal outbursts. She always went into support and reassurance mode. But not this time, she teared up and said, I deserve it, but I can't keep doing this. I realized then I was going to lose her again. I don't want to lose her, it was so hard the first time. I love her so much. At that point I rug swept everything. I stopped bringing it up. I stopped talking about my feelings about this, except in the most vague ways. If she brought it up or checked in on me, I played it off, told her I was doing good and was in a different place now. We got engaged 6 months later. We just got married 2 weeks ago. Zoe has been everything a man could hope for this last year. I have regained my trust in her and she goes out of her way to love and support me. I am a rising star at the office. I've been really pushing hard at work. I take on all the toughest jobs and I have been hitting it out the park. I just got promoted and with it a substantial raise. On top of that, I have made it a point to exercise regularly and eat well every day. I am in better shape than I ever thought I would be. With all that said, I make it point to spend as much time together with my now wife. Even if she just wants to chill and watch TV, I'll massage her shoulders or feet, play with her hair, soft touch her arms or back. The little things she likes. The response has been huge. She can't keep her hands off me, we are doing small trips together, and our non-physical intimacy is consistent and deep. But it's all born of insecurity. This is my problem. I am so driven at work and the gym and in the kitchen and with my wife because I am so terrified she will leave me again. I sometimes look up the guy on social media. Just to make sure my career is going better, it is that I am in better shape, I am. I don't want her to feel bad, I still feel so